which are a class of algorithms that are commonly used to generate high-quality solutions for problems in optimization and search. So these algorithms rely on biologically inspired operators such as mutation, crossover, and selection. So our outline for this lecture is the following. We will answer the question, what is evolutionary computing? And then why should we use it? And also we'll compare human versus evolutionary computations. Then we'll talk about just one of the many different evolutionary computation algorithms. We'll focus on the genetic algorithm, which is the most popular among these evolutionary computation algorithms. We'll then apply the GA to a TSP or traveling salesman problem example. Then lastly, at the end, we'll talk about the different population models. So what is evolutionary computation? First, nature has always served as a source of inspiration for engineers and scientists. So you have seen earlier in one of the lectures the use of neurons, which is a inspired, biologically inspired paradigm for solving problems. The best problem solver known in nature is the human brain that discovered the DNA, created the computer, and so many other wonders. And after that is the evolutionary mechanism that created the human brain. Evolutionary computing or evolutionary computation is part of computer science. It's not biology. It's a subfield of AI within computational intelligence. So evolutionary computation is one of the subfields of computational intelligence. It is inspired by the process of natural evolution. There are many evolutionary computation algorithms. Among the more popular ones are the following: ACO or ant colony optimization, then differential evolution, ES or evolutionary strategy, your genetic algorithm or GA, then you have genetic programming or GP, particle swarm optimization or PSO, and so on. Now, evolutionary algorithms have very broad applicability. It's widely used in engineering, biology, economics, even in marketing. It's used a lot in robotics, in politics, art, and so on. So it has really a lot of different applications. So it's very general. Pioneers of evolutionary computation are the following. You have Turing in 1948. He, as early as then, proposed the so-called genetical or evolutionary search. Then in 1962, Bremerman's experiments, computer experiments and optimization through evolution and recombination were published. In the 1960s, the GA or genetic algorithm was developed by Holland. Then evolutionary programming or EP came out also in the 60s, together with ES or evolutionary strategies. In the 90s, you have genetic programming which was popularized by Koza. And in the year 2000 onwards, there are many proposals for multi-objective evolutionary algorithms, including the one of NSGA2 by Deb. Evolutionary computing encompasses the following techniques: GA, or genetic algorithms, evolutionary programming, evolutionary strategy, genetic programming, and learning classifier systems, among others. The elements of evolutionary computation algorithm are the following. There are three of them. First is your environment. Second, your population of individuals. And third, your fitness. So, in the side of evolutionary computing, you have these the three elements. Now, we said that evolutionary computation is used for problem solving. For problem solving, the problem itself corresponds to the environment. And the candidate solution is an individual in your evolutionary computation algorithm. The quality of your candidate solution is measured by your fitness. Now, in the theory of evolution by Darwin, there are two important components. First is the idea of the survival of the fittest. As we know, environments have finite resources and organisms compete. These organisms have basic instinct and life cycles that are geared towards reproduction. So these first two imply some kind of selection. So since organisms compete for finite resources, the ones that are stronger are the ones that are able to reproduce better in some sense. So the ones that are not able to compete, they disappear, and they're not able to reproduce. Individuals that compete for resources most effectively, therefore, have increased chances of reproduction. And the second idea in the theory of evolution is that of natural selection. Here, the traits that are favored by the environment become more common in successive generations. So you have, for example, resistance or antibiotic resistance in bacteria. So when a bacterium is able to resist or deal with a low concentration of an antibiotic, the next generation becomes stronger. So in effect, after several generations, stronger bacteria or bacteria that are relatively immune to weak concentrations of antibiotics are able to survive. In the theory of evolution, there is the following. You have an individual which is seen as composed of a genotype and a phenotype. The genotype is the genetic makeup of the individual, and the phenotype reflect the physical properties of that same individual. So again, the genotype is your individual's set of heritable genes that is passed on from parents to offsprings. For example, the genes for blue eyes. Now for the phenotype, you have the observable physical properties of the individual, which in this case would be the blue eyes. So the phenotype directly determines the individual's chances of survival or ability to reproduce. The stronger ones, the bigger ones, the ones that are able to fight diseases have better chances of survival and pass on their genes to their offsprings. Genes encode the phenotypic characteristics of the individual. Now, as regards phenotypic traits, behavioral or physical differences that affect response to the environment are actually captured by these traits. So these traits are also partly determined by inheritance and also by factors during development. And these traits are unique to each individual, partly as a result of random changes. So even if you have identical twins, for example, these identical twins are actually not going to be the same anymore after many years, because although they have the same genes, the environment also affects them in some way, and that's when you see the differences. If phenotypic traits lead to higher chances of reproduction and can be inherited, then they will tend to increase in subsequent generations, leading to new combinations of traits. So the good ones tend to be propagated, and the bad ones, they might just disappear if they are recessive traits. Now, the evolutionary process is best visualized using the adaptive landscape or fitness landscape metaphor by Wright, which he proposed in 1932. So in this diagram, a fitness value is associated with a particular set of traits. So here you have just two traits, trait 1 and trait 2. And for this particular combination, okay, you have this much fitness. So a population with n traits will be residing in n+1 dimensional space. So here we have two traits. They have a landscape that is in three-dimensional space. The additional dimension corresponds to the height, which actually reflects the fitness of the individual. So each individual represents a single point on the landscape. So in this case, the entire population of individuals will be a cloud of points. The selection process pushes the points up the landscape. And evolution is the process of advancing population towards high altitude or fitness areas. Now, the nice thing about evolutionary computation algorithms is that these algorithms are more robust compared to the traditional optimization algorithms that can easily get trapped in local minimum. Now we answer the question, why evolutionary computation? First, developing, analyzing, and applying problem-solving methods, such as algorithms, is a central theme in computer science, engineering, and many other fields. Also, when it comes to problem solving, the time for thorough problem analysis is decreasing. So the time that is given to us to solve a problem is decreasing because people want instant solutions. Companies want instant solutions. And furthermore, the complexity of problems that we are dealing now are increasing. So the problems that we have now are harder than the problems of, say, 10 years back. And therefore, we need robust problem-solving technology to be able to deal with these problems. Let's take a look at optimization problems. So here you have your model, and your model is known. Okay, what's inside is known. You know the details, say, of timetabling problem for a university or hospital or call center, and you specify the output, but you don't know the input. For example, say in the university, so the students go to classrooms and the teachers also teach in these classrooms. We're talking about the normal case before the pandemic. So the question now is, what is the best configuration, the best schedule for both the students and the teachers, so that, one, of course, there's no conflict. Okay, the teachers will not be assigned to the same room. Second, that the teachers only teach one class at a time, because he cannot or she cannot teach two subjects at the same time and at two different places. So that's a scheduling problem. Assigning teachers to rooms and making sure that there's an adequate, correct assignment of rooms. And on the other hand, the assignment has to be friendly to the students as well. Meaning, it's best that the students have some rest as well, so that they have time for lunch and ideally time to study between subjects. So that's okay. That's a timetabling problem, and you can apply that to hospitals, call centers, and so on. So modeling or system identification problems would be to determine what's inside this box. The input and the outputs are known, but what is this model that will give me the right decision? For example, for a bank loan model, using historical data of previous clients, you would know whether a particular client would default on his or her loans. So what is this model inside this box? The next application category is that of design. So again, the output is specified, and you know the model itself. So what is the right input that will give me this correct specified output? How should the antenna be shaped so that it will receive or transmit the signal strongly with little interference? So that is a design problem. Human competitive results by evolutionary computation. So what is this? This means that evolutionary computation results can actually be comparable to those generated by humans. And by this, we mean the following. For the results to be humanly competitive, it must satisfy one of the following 8 criteria. First is the result was patented as an invention in the past or is an improvement over a patented invention or would qualify today as a patentable new invention. That's the first criterion. The second is the following. The result is equal to or better than the result that was accepted as a new scientific result at the time when it was published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal. Third, the result is equal to or better than a result that was placed into a database or archive of results maintained by an internationally recognized panel of scientific experts. Fourth, the result is publishable in its own right as a new scientific result independent of the fact that the result was mechanically created. The result is equal to or better than the most recent human-created solution to a long-standing problem for which there's been a succession of increasingly better human-created solutions. Or that the result is equal to or better than a result that was considered an achievement in its own field at the time it was first discovered. Or that the result solves a problem of indisputable difficulty in its field. Or that the result holds its own or wins a regulated competition involving human contestants in the form of either live human players or human written computer programs. So are there humanly competitive results generated by existing evolutionary computation programs? Let's see. Okay, so here this is in the field of quantum computation. So as you know, quantum computing is increasingly becoming popular, and they've used genetic algorithms and other methods to design better than classical quantum algorithms for the Deutsch-Josse problem, for the Grover's database search problem, and so on. So in this field of quantum computation, evolutionary computation is already humanly competitive. So this is just a sample of the results made in the domain of quantum computation. Now, something that's more down to earth, probably easier to understand, the following. Creation of a soccer playing program that won its first 2 place in the RoboCup 1997 competition. This is really an old result, but then, okay, so it satisfies criterion H. So you have contests here that were won by your algorithm. And then also here you have the creation of algorithms for some interesting problems in bioinformatics. So that this one satisfies criterion B and E. Then some circuit design problems in electrical engineering. Okay, synthesis of a crossover filter. It even rediscovered the voltage gain and Darlington emitter follower section of an amplifier and several other circuits. So this, of course, was were already discovered in or invented in the past, but well, the algorithm doesn't know that. So it was able to rediscover all these circuits. Okay, synthesis of amplifiers, circuits for doing some nonlinear computations, even for the real-time analog circuit for a time optimal control of a robot, electronic thermometer, voltage reference circuit, and so on. So even the synthesis of an analog circuit equivalent to the Philbrick circuit. So for those who do not know, the Philbrick circuit is simply the analog operational amplifier. So it was, of course, invented by Philbrick. However, the algorithm, without knowing that, invented or reinvented the operational amplifier. So you have many others. Okay, so this is a short list actually of the results produced by EC. And if you're not convinced by this, I don't think you'll be convinced by anything else. Okay, so let's start with the genetic algorithms. So GA was developed in the US in the 1970s. The pioneers were Holland, De Jong, and Goldberg. It's good for discrete optimization problems as well as combinatorial problems. The special features of GA is that it emphasizes combining information from good parents through crossover. It also has many variants, many reproduction models, many operators, as we shall see in the next slides. So we'll talk about the SGA, or the simple genetic algorithm by Holland. So this is the first version made by Holland, and it's simple, easy to understand, and we will talk about this. The variants of the SGA use different representations, different mutation operations, different crossover operations, as well as different selection mechanisms. So you can see that there are many different variants of the genetic algorithm. So let's take a look at the most basic one. So the most basic one will represent your problem as a string of binary numbers. Okay, so it's a binary string. Then your GA or SGA will have an endpoint or uniform recombination, and we shall see what this is. Mutation for the SGA is bit flipping with fixed probability. Parent selection would be fitness proportionate, and survivor selection would be of the generational type, where all parents replace, where all children replace the parents. The specialty of the SGA is its emphasis on crossover. So we can consider the SGA as operating in the genotype space. The genotype space is the space, the search space. Okay, and this genes here actually encode a particular set of traits in your phenotype space. So the encoding is called the representation, Okay, so the set of traits like blue eyes, tall, long hair, and so on, or brown hair, blonde hair, whatever, would correspond to a particular set of genes in your chromosome. So now, so in this space, you have a search of the best individuals, which, when mapped back, decoded, will give you, okay, the best individual. So this genes here, these chromosomes here, actually map back into individuals, and that would be your solution space. So here you have your solution space, and here you have your search space. The SGA has the following reproduction cycle. First step is selection of parents for the mating pool. The size of the mating pool is your population size. The next step is to shuffle the mating pool. So the many possible parents, you choose just a pair, you choose many pairs, and then the pairs actually generate offsprings. So for each consecutive pair, we apply the crossover with probability PC for crossover. Otherwise, we copy the parents. For each offspring, we apply the mutation operation, where we bit flip with probability PM, M for mutation, independently for each bit. And finally, we replace the whole population with the resulting offsprings. So let's take a look at the SGA crossover. Here's the 1-point crossover. Here we select, so these are the parents. Okay, two parents. Okay. Here we select a random point on the two parents. These are your genes, and the entire thing is called a chromosome. You have two chromosomes corresponding to the two parents. So a random point is chosen on the two parents, and then the parents are split at this crossover point. Then the children are created by exchanging the tails. So this part here, okay, so this part is copied to the first child, this part to the second child, but for the first child you take the tail part and copy that to form the first chromosome, and similarly for the second child. A probability of 1-point crossover is between 0.6 and 0.9. So this doesn't happen all the time. So you need to do that only with probability between 0.6 and 0.9. Now let's talk about mutation this time. So in mutation, we alter each gene independently with probability PM, which is your mutation rate. PM is typically between 1 over population size and 1 over chromosome length. So here we have your parent, and to mutate, we just simply flip this from 1 to 0, or from 0 to 1 if it's originally 0, okay, with probability PM. So here it doesn't happen all the time. It happens only with probability PM. Now let's come to the selection part. The main idea here is to make the individuals with better or higher fitnesses have a higher chance of being selected. Okay, so the chances would be proportionate or proportional to the fitness. So we implement that by using the relay wheel technique. For this, we assign to each individual a part of the relay wheel, and then we spin the wheel n times to select n individuals. For example, you have 3 individuals, A, B, and C, and the fitnesses of these individuals are 3, 1, and 2 respectively. So if you add all of these, you get 6. So 3 plus 1 plus 2, that's 6. So individual A will get 3 out of 6, that's 50% of the entire wheel, while individual B will occupy 1 over 6 or 17% of the relay wheel. And lastly, for individual C, you have this part, which is 33% of the entire area. Then you spin this wheel 3 times, and you get the corresponding individual. So let's take a look at an example by Goldberg. Suppose we would like to maximize the function f of x equals x squared over the range 0, 1, 2 up to 31. Okay, of course we know the answer, no? So it's 31, but then the genetic algorithm does not know that. So we first map our problem into the appropriate representation. So our binary code would be the appropriate one. So we encode, for example, 13, the number 13, x equals 13, as 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. And say we want a population size of 4 for our example. Okay. Then we also do a 1-point crossover and bitwise mutation. Our selection mechanism would be that of the relay wheel. Then we randomly initialize, and in this example, let's work this out by hand. Let's work out 1 generational cycle by hand. Okay, so initialize the population. So you have string 1, you have individual 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these individuals have chromosomes with 5 genes. Okay, so for the first individual, you have this value, this gene 0, 1, 1, and 0 and 1. So you have 5 genes. And similarly for all the rest. Now this actually is your genotype. Now your phenotype is the fitness, well, it's captured by the fitness. So here 0, 1, 1, 0, 1 is the binary representation for the number 13, and this for 24 and for 8 and 19. So the corresponding fitnesses of these strings, individuals 1, 2, 3, and 4 are 13 squared, 24 squared, 8 squared, and 19 squared. So we again add the fitness values. If you add them, you get a sum of 1,170. If you take the average, that would be 293. If you take the maximum value is this. Okay. Now you compute this time the probability the probability of the individual, the chance of it being selected. Okay, so how do you do that? So you divide 169 by 170, that's 0.14. This by that, you go 0.49 and so on. So the probabilities, of course, should add up to 1. Now, how many individuals would we want? We want 4 individuals in the next generation to replace the 4 parents. So we multiply this by 4, 4 by 4 by 4, and we get the expected count 0.58, 1.97, and so on. So if you sort of round it, you get 1, 2, 0, and 1. So if you add this, it should add up to 4 because you need 4 children for the next generation. Okay, so what you will see is that this individual will disappear, 0. Okay, so in the next generation, this individual's chromosome, this chromosome will disappear because this value is 0. To be replaced by this because this has an actual count of 2. Now, looking at this actually makes sense because this individual, the third one, has a value of 64, which is the lowest among these values. And this will be chosen twice because it has the highest value. Okay, so this makes sense. Now that's for the selection. Now let's do the crossover. So again, these are the values above on the previous slide, but this time we ask the random number generator, give me a number between 1 and 4. Yes, 1 and 4. So the random number generator says, okay, 4 for these two. We assume that these first two are going to mate. So 4, crossover point is 4. So that would be your crossover point. Then this part here will get swapped. Okay, so now we have swap just the tail part. Okay, so because you're generating the offspring, and these are your parents. And similarly for this, we ask again the random number generator to give us a number between 1 and 4, and it gives us number 2. Okay, so the second crossover point here. Then we also swap the tail end, so this now becomes the tail of the second string number 4, and this part here becomes the tail end of string number 3 in the offspring. Okay, so so if you observe, these two are actually the same here in this mating pool, but in the next round, after crossover, the offsprings will actually be different. So now let's take a look at the values of the x's. Okay, so this maps to this is actually the value 12, 25, 27, and 16. And the fitnesses are the following. You'll notice that there's an increase in the sum, average, and maximum. So the maximum here was 576 for the fitness, while here it's now 729. So there's an improvement of the fitness, average fitness, for the entire set, for the entire population in this next generation. Not yet. We need to mutate. We still have to mutate. So this is your offspring. These are the offsprings after the crossover. in the previous slide, then we do a random mutation. So we modify the genes values randomly. Okay, so here what happened was okay, so the first gene was changed. Here there's no change, and here also there's no change, but the fourth string, the last one, changed in this location here. So if you look at the fitness, the values and the fitnesses, this is what will come out, and there's probably an improvement, but not necessarily, because this is random. So you keep on iterating, and you will see that this will stop when you have reached the value, the optimal value, which is your solution, x equals 31. If you're not convinced, write a program later and convince yourself that this would actually converge to your solution. So this is actually a simple problem, f of x equals x squared, but that function can be more complicated. It could be sine, cosine, with integral sign, whatever. Okay, put in your most difficult function. Hopefully you'll arrive at the optimal solution. Okay, so do you have questions at this point? No questions? Please raise your hand if you have a question so I can unmute you. Okay, no question. Now, the genetic algorithm, the SGA, has been the subject of many studies. So because of its simplicity, it's still often used as a benchmark for new genetic algorithms that are being developed. Being simple, of course, will have its own shortcomings. For example, the representation is too restrictive, just binary representation. Then your mutation and crossover operations are only applicable for bit string and integer representations. Then the selection mechanism is sensitive for converging populations with close fitness values. Also, the generational population model, which is step 5, and reproduction cycle can be improved with explicit survivor selection, and we shall see this later towards the end. Okay, representation. As we said, a problem has an appropriate representation. So we have several types of representations. You can have a binary representation, which we saw earlier. You could have a bit string. You could have that gray coded. You could have also an integer. So the genes doesn't have to be. They do not have to be 0 or 1. Only it could be 0 to 255 for images, or any value, in integer value if you wish. It could be negative. It could even be values like north, south, east, west. It could be colors: blue, red, pink, orange, anything you like. Okay. So it's also convenient to have a floating point representation. And if you're solving a problem like TSP or your traveling salesman problem, you need a permutation representation. So all these representations can actually be handled by your genetic algorithm, modified, of course, from its original SGA form. So let's talk about the binary representation. So there are two types that are in common use: the binary coding, which is very familiar with you guys. Then you have gray coding of integers, but still using binary chromosomes. So this is familiar, but let's review. So for gray coding, what we have is a mapping that allows small changes in the genotype to just cause small changes in the phenotype, unlike in the case of binary coding. So for example, say you're coding the number 8. So 8 is or 7. So 7 is 1 1 1. Okay, 0 0 1 1 1. Now the next value, which is 8, is 0 1 0 0 0, and you will notice that there are actually 3 bits or 4 bits that changed. So we prefer a smoother genotype-phenotype mapping. We prefer a mapping that is less abrupt in the changes, because this will result in a smoother genotype-phenotype mapping, which will make life easier for the algorithm. So this is your binary and your gray code. This is familiar to all of you. Let's now talk about real-valued problems. So many problems occur as real-valued problems, which means that the problem is basically a parameter optimization problem that maps from some high dimensional space of reals, okay, Rn, to a real number R. So this function here is very common, very often used in evolutionary computation. It's called the Ackley's function, which is a non-convex function used for testing the performance of optimization algorithms. So why is this a favorite function? Because it has many local minima. So if your algorithm is not clever, it will get trapped in any of these local minima. It thinks that it has already found the solution, when in fact the global solution is here. So it is full of traps. Okay, so it has many local minima that, and this local minima would be there to confuse the optimization algorithm under test. So if your optimization algorithm is able to get your global optimum, then you have a good one. So this is the formula for your Ackley's function. Now let's talk about mapping real values on bit strings. So we know that any value z between x and y can be represented by L bits. Okay, a bit string of L elements, where each of these bits, can assume a value of 0 or 1. So this mapping should be invertible, meaning one phenotype per genotype, and this would be your representation. Okay, so a particular bit string would map to a particular number in your interval x and y. So the mapping is the following. So it's just straightforward. Okay, there are only 2 L values out of the infinite number of possible values that can be represented by this representation. So L here determines the possible maximum precision of your solution. If you want high precision, you need long chromosomes, which means many bits. However, we know that if you have long chromosomes, the evolution would be slow. So for example, to represent 0.375, you can represent that as 0.025 plus 0.0125. It's this one, or that one. Now, how do you mutate that representation? We mutate each gene independently with the user-defined probability PM. So we specify the bit mutation probability PM. We generate a random number between 0 and 1, and we mutate if that random number is less than or equal to the specified bit mutation probability. So it's as simple as that. Now for integer representation, we mutate each gene independently with user-defined probability PM. So there are two ways of doing that. Random resetting. With probability PM, a new value is chosen at random from a set of permissible values in each position. So if there are just 4 possible values, north, south, east, west, with random probability PM, we just choose any of these values. That's random resetting. For creep mutation, we only allow changes that are small perturbations of the decoded parameters. So we do that by adding a small positive or negative value to each gene with probability P. So how do we mutate for floating point represented numbers? We transform each gene within its domain given by this lower bound and upper bound. So this is transformation. Okay, so that transformation could be given by the uniform mutation, which is where the values of x prime sub I are drawn randomly from this range. And this is normally used with position-wise mutation probability. For non-uniform mutation with a fixed distribution, what we do is we add to the current gene a value drawn from the Gaussian distribution, okay, with mean mu and standard deviation sigma. So normally mu is set to 0. And we clip the value to this interval if needed. So if it exceeds, if it falls outside this interval, then we clip as needed. The normal practice is to apply this operator with probability 1 per gene, and the mutation parameter is then used to control the standard deviation of the Gaussian. So how do we mutate a representation for a permutation? We can do a swap mutation. Okay, so we randomly pick 2 positions and we swap their values. Okay, so randomly pick the 2nd and the 5th position, then we swap the 2. This one way. Or we do an insert mutation where we randomly pick 2 positions and move one so that it is next to the other, shuffling along the others to make room. So we choose this 2nd position and the 5th position. Then we move this there, and then we move all the rest to the right. So that's your insert mutation. You can also have a scramble mutation, where the entire string or some randomly chosen subset of values within it have their positions scrambled. Okay, so you choose a subset, a substring, or the entire string if you wish, and then you just shuffle the values within the chosen segment. You can also again have an insert mutation where we randomly pick two positions and reverse the order in which the values appear between these two positions. Okay, so in this segment here, okay, you just reverse the order and a mutated individual. Binary recombination. So we can have a one-point crossover where we choose random number r in the interval 1 to L minus 1. Okay, so this is L is the length. And then we split both parents at this point and create two children by exchanging the tails. That's your one-point crossover. For n-point crossover, we choose n random crossover points in 1 to L minus 1, and the chromosome is broken into more than two segments, 3 in this case, and the offsprings are created by taking alternate segments from both parents. That's your endpoint crossover. Uniform crossover. We generate a vector here. We generate L random variables from a uniform distribution over 0, 1, your interval 0, 1. Then if the value here is below some parameter p, for example 0.5, the gene is inherited from the first parent. Otherwise, it is inherited from the second. So for example here, if p is equal to 0.5, so this is less than 0.5, less than 0.5, greater than 0.5. So we inherit the second parent's gene. Okay, so here we inherit the first parent's gene because it's less than 0.5. This is greater than 0.5. Therefore, we inherit the second parent's gene and so on. So this is what will come out. So for the recombination of the integer representation, we do the same as for the binary representation. Combination for floating point representation is as follows. We can have simple recombination. Okay, so this is representing some floating point numbers. Okay, so each of the genes represents some floating point numbers. Then we pick a recombination point k. Then for child 1, which is this, we take the first k floats of parent A, okay, and put them into the child. So this part here we just copy, and then the rest is the average, the arithmetic average of parent 1 and 2 for child 1. Okay, so you take the average of 0.7 and 0.3. What's the average? It's 0.5. 0.5, and this is 0.6. So now you have that one for your tail. For child 2, okay, it's with x and y reverse. So for child 2, you just you do the same also for the tail end. So the tail end of these two are going to be the same, but this part here is going to be taken from the second parent. For single arithmetic recombination, we pick a recombination point K. At that position, we take the arithmetic average of the two parents, and the other 2 points are the points from the parents. Okay, so here we pick a recombination point K equals 8. So this is the 8th location, 8th position. Then we take the average of the two. So that's 0.5. And that 0.5 now will be the new value for that gene for both siblings. Now, the most commonly used operator is the following. So for child 1, it uses formula, and for child 2, this other formula. Basically, you select a value alpha, then we apply the formula here. Now, if alpha is 0.5, you'll see that the offsprings will be the same. Now, how do you represent permutations? So ordering and sequencing problems need special representation. So normally these tasks are solvable by arranging some objects in a certain order. For example, you have your sort algorithm. It's important because we would like to know which elements occur first before others. So there's an ordering here. And another example is that of the TSP. What is important here is that the elements occur next to each other. So the adjacency is important. Now these ordering or sequencing problems are best expressed as a permutation. If there are n variables, then the representation is a list of n integers, each of which occurs only once. So here is your TSP example. The traveling salesman problem is the following. Given n cities, find a complete tour with minimal length. So you have your cities here. Now, how should you visit the different cities in such a way that when you visit one in sequence and you want to cover all, you have a minimal length. So you label the cities from 1 to n, and then one complete tour is one permutation. Okay. So for n equals 4, for example, so you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 to 1, and so on. So there's a huge search space for this. For 30 cities, there are 30 factorial possible tours. That's 10 raised to the 32 possible tours, which is a big number. And 30 is a small number for TSP. So if you have 100, then 100 factorial, not even your calculator would be able to generate the answer, 100 factorial. So a lot of tours, a lot of possible tours. Now, so how do you represent the TSP? We can represent the TSP as there's a sequence of numbers like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, which means visit city 1, then visit city 2, 3, and 4 in sequence. So now let's talk about recombination for permutation representation. So for permutation representation, One of the most widely used operators for adjacency type problems such as the TSP is the PMX, or the partially mapped crossed over, popularized by Goldberg and Lingle. PMX is as follows. So you have two parents here, P1 and P2, and you'd like to generate two offsprings. So for step 1, we choose two crossover points at random, so say here and there, and then we copy the segment between them from parent P1 into the first offspring. So this part here, you copy there in your first offspring. That's for step 1. Now for step 2, what you do is, okay, we have copied 4, 5, 6, 7 here. Then we look at the second parent. You look for those genes in the second parent that are already copied. So 8 is not copied, it's not here, and so is 2. But 6 and 5 are already present, right? Because we just copied this. So you can say it is already checked, and this is checked. So these two have not yet been accounted for. So what do we do next? For the first one, we go to the first parent and we look at the value here. The value here is 4. Okay? With that value, you look for that same value in the second parent. And the value is here. Okay? Now that's where you're going to transfer your 8 here. Okay, so now we have this. How about this one? Again, using the same idea, we go up and we look for the value 5 here. The value 5 is there, right? Therefore, we should be transferring 2 to that position. But that position is already occupied, right, by 7. So we cannot do that. What you have to do is we go up and look for the value 7 in the second parent. Okay? Now this is vacant. That's where you're going to transfer your value to. And for step 3, the rest of the offspring can be filled from P2. Okay, so 9, 3 from P2 is just copied here, and I think the one here is copied there. With that, we have now your first child. For the second child, you create it analogously. Another recombination operation for the permutation representation is the cycle crossover. So here, each allele or gene comes from one parent together with its position. To do that, we make a cycle of alleles from P1 in the following way. Start with the first allele of P1, look at the allele at the same position in P2. You go back to the position with the same allele in P1, add this allele to the cycle, and we keep on repeating this until you arrive at the first allele of P1. Then for the next step, we put the alleles of the cycle in the first child on the positions they have in the first parent. And finally, we take the next cycle from the second parent. To illustrate, we have the following. First step is to identify the cycles. So first, we start with this first position here. Then we go down. Okay. What do we have here? A value 9. With this, we go to the 9th position. Okay. Then on the 9th position, we go to the 9th position of the second parent. This value here says 4, therefore we go to the 4th position of the first parent. Okay, this value says, well, 4. We go down from the 4th position to the 4th position on the second parent. What do we have here? A value 8. From here, we go to position 8 of the first parent. And we keep on doing that until we go back to the first position. So now we have a cycle. So this is your first cycle. For the second cycle, you start with this, position 2. Here, go down, it says 3, go to position 3 on P1, down 7, position 7 on P1, go down, position 5 on P1, go down, position 2 on P1, you now have another cycle. So you have now mark all this. So what remains is the 6th position. So from here, you only have one choice. So this is your third cycle. Okay, so that's for step 1. The next step is to copy alternating cycles into the offsprings. So for the first offspring, we just have this, the ones in gray, coming from the first cycle. Okay, so 1, 4, 8, 9. 1, 4, 8, 9. For the second offspring, we have 9, 8, 1, 4. 9, 8, 1, 4. For the second cycle, we copy 2, 3, 5, and 7. Here in the second offspring, because you need to alternate the cycles into the offspring. Again, 2, 3, 5, and 7. 2, 3, 5, and 7. For the first offspring, you get it from the second parent. So 3, 7, 2, and 5. 3, 7, 2, and 5. So for the third cycle, you have just 6 for both offspring. So this is your cycle crossover. Population models. There are two common population models used for genetic algorithms. The first is the generational model, where each individual survives for exactly one generation. So here, that individual will not appear in the next generation, it will disappear. Okay, so in that case, the entire set of parents is going to be replaced by the set of offsprings. That's your generational model. There's another model where one offspring is generated per generation, and only one member of the population is replaced by that offspring. So that's the steady state model. The generation gap is defined as sigma over mu, where sigma is the number of parents replaced by the offsprings, and mu is your population size. For your generational model, the two are the same. The number of parents replaced by the offspring is the same as the population size, right? So all of them are replaced by the offsprings. So 1 is the value for the generation gap. Now for the steady state genetic algorithm, you only have 1 divided by the size of the population. Fitness-based competition. So there are two selection mechanisms. One for parent selection, where here the selection is from the current generation that will take part in the mating process. So how do you select the parents that will mate in the current generation? That's called parent selection. For survivor selection, we select from the parents and offsprings to go into the next generation. Okay, so for the generational model, you just include you don't include the parents anymore, so all the offsprings will go to the next generation. Okay. For the steady state model, just one offspring will go to the next generation, and then one of the parents here will not proceed to the next generation. So which one of them? That depends on the survivor selection mechanism. Selection operators are representation independent since they work on the entire individual. So for example, for SGA, the expected number of copies of an individual eye is just the following. Okay, so number of copies is n sub I for individual eye. Mu is your population size. Then F of I is the fitness of that individual, and F, this average fitness of the population, is this denominator. In the relay wheel algorithm, we are given a probability distribution. Then we spin a wheel n times to make n selections. And with this, there are no guarantees on the actual value of ni. Now there's another algorithm that is similar. It's called the Baker's stochastic universal sampling algorithm. So here there are n evenly spaced arms on the wheel, and we spin it once. So the idea here is captured by this picture. So the total fitness is this. So you have here 0 to F. and the fitness of A is this much, fitness of B is this length here, and so on. So you have fitnesses, defining intervals over this segment here. Now if you have 4 points or 4 individuals to choose for the next generation, what you do is you sample from this interval here. Okay, you divide this, by the way, into 4 segments so that now you can sample properly. So here, well, here you have 3. So the idea here is you are giving the opportunity, you're giving the low fitness individuals an opportunity to be chosen in the next for the next generation. So it doesn't mean that if your fitness is low, you have 0 chance of being selected. No? So here we sort of give a chance to the low fitness individuals to be chosen for the next generation. Now, fitness proportionate selection has problems. We have the premature convergence problem, where one highly fit member can rapidly take over if the rest of the population is much less fit. At the end of the runs, when the fitnesses are similar, we lose selection pressure. And this is highly susceptible to function transposition. So these two problems can be solved by scaling. So one method is to do windowing, where the function now is replaced by the function less a beta raised to the t, where t is a parameter. Beta is the worst fitness in this last n generations. The other method is to use sigma scaling, where you use this formula here, okay, where this time c is a constant, usually 2.0, and sigma is the standard deviation of the fitnesses in the population. So what is transposition? Transposition is the case where your function here is transposed by a fixed amount, and the effect of that on the wheel would be the following. So now it's going to be a bit of a bias. Against this part here, B. So this will affect the probability of B being chosen, and all the rest, of course. So that's because of fitness, because of transposition, function transposition. Now, attempts to cure problems of fitness proportionate selection is done by basing selection probabilities on relative rather than absolute fitness. So you can do that by ranking the population according to fitness, and then you base your selection probabilities on the rank, where the fittest has the rank mu -1 and the worst has rank 0. Here you have a sorting overhead on the algorithm, which is usually negligible compared to the fitness evaluation time. So the calculation is as follows. So here you have a rank equal to 0 for the worst individual, the individual with the lowest fitness. So it's parameterized by a factor S, where S is between 1 and 2, which measures the advantage of the best individual. So in your generational GA, this is the number of children allotted to it. So here we have a simple 3-member example. Okay, suppose your fitness is 1 for member A, 5 for B, and 4 for C. The fitnesses sum up to 10. Then you sort this and you rank them. So this one has the lowest fitness, it's therefore ranked as 0, 2, and 1. And then you calculate this based on this formula. Actually, you calculate this based on this formula. For S equals 2, the results are this. And for S equals 1.5, it's these quantities. Now, linear ranking is limited to selection pressure. We can also do exponential ranking using this formula, where C is your normalization factor. The advantage of exponential ranking is that it can allocate more than 2 copies to the fittest individual. So we normalize this constant factor C according to population size. Another selection mechanism is that of tournament selection. So all those methods described above rely on global population statistics, which could be a bottleneck, especially on parallel machines, and time-consuming if your population is large. The presence of external fitness function might not even exist. So the tournament selection is one of the most widely used selection operator. Basically, formally, we have the following procedure for tournament selection. We pick K members at random, then select the best of these, then repeat to select more individuals. The ranking of selecting I will depend on the rank of I, the size of the sample K, with higher K increasing selection pressure. Also, it will depend on whether the contestants are picked with replacement. Again, picking without replacement increases selection pressure. It also depends on whether the fittest contestant always wins, deterministic, or this happens with probability P. For K equals 2, sample size 2, the time for fittest individual to take over the population is the same as linear ranking with S equals 2P. Now, most of the methods for parent selection are applicable. And as regards selection of survivors, we have 2 approaches. We have age-based selection, such as in the case of SGA. So in the steady-state genetic algorithm, we can implement that as a delete random. It is not recommended, or as a first in, first out, or delete the oldest individual. Or it could be your fitness-based selection, where you can use one of the methods described above, or elitism, or genitor, which is described in the next slides. In this slide. So for elitism, well, it's widely used in both steady-state and generational models. We always keep at least 1 copy of the fittest solution so far. That's elitism. In the genitor style survivor selection mechanism, we replace the worst. Here we select the worst lambda members of the population for replacement. And this will result in a rapid improvement in the average population fitness, but may lead to premature convergence. So a reference for this lecture is this book, Introduction to Evolutionary Computing by Even and Smith.